I have in my hands the best crankbait rod.
No, he doesn't. This is the best crankbait rod.
No, dude. This is the best crankbait rod.
Come on, man. How many times have I fished you with this rod?
Yeah, it's never happened. It could never happen.
Come on.
These are the questions and the comments that we get in the shop all the time.
All the time.
How in the world do you choose a crankbait rod?
Yeah.
There are so many options, and it's a very difficult space to navigate as you're diving in. Today, we're going to break down how to buy the right crankbait rod. We're going to highlight some of our favorites. We're going to go from shallow to square bills to mid diving to deep diving. We're just going to break it all down for you guys. So if you want to join along, let's go.
Come on. We'll show you the best crankbait rod.
This one.
This one.
It's this one. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of OSP, Evergreen, Depths, Lucky Craft, Jackall, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard to find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com. What's up everyone? I am the Tackle Otaku, Ben Kohler with Hookup Tackle, being joined by my buddy Julius Maisie.
What's up?
AKA the hippie. What's up, hippie?
What's going on?
Being filmed, of course, by my buddy Jeffrey the King. We are the Hookup Tackle USA. We today are going to break down a question that we get all the time here in the shop, and that is, how do I find the right crankbait rod?
Yeah.
It seems like crankbait rods have a lot of mystique, a lot of kind of misunderstanding about them, and it's a fairly simple segment really when you actually get a chance to use a bunch of the rods.
Right.
But if you're not like born in the shop and you get to try all the rods, it can be really hard to navigate.
And there's so many options. Everybody has a crankbait rod, you know? So
yeah, or a crankbait.
A crankbait rod,
right.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about how to find the perfect crankbait rod for you, for your needs, for your waters, for the baits that you throw. And we're going to kind of highlight some of our favorites. We're going to talk about why we use them, when we use them, and hopefully it can help shed some light on, you know, making this an easier to navigate segment for you guys. First of all, let's talk about a crankbait really quick and why it's important to have a crankbait rod, because this is one of those rods that I feel is like so detrimental that every angler have in their arsenal.
Right, everybody's got one.
Yeah, so I mean there's a lot of rods that can be kind of multi-purpose. You could do this and that, or you could do that and this, and not necessarily have like a specific Ned rig rod or a specific, you know, blade bait rod or something like that. Yeah. But a crankbait, I feel like you have to have the right rod for this bait. Yeah. Agreed?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think, I mean, how many crankbait rods do we have? If we're cranking,
a million.
Yeah. Right. Every depth and style of crankbait has its own rod.
Right. And here's basically why, you know, we feel this way. When you look at a crankbait, the idea behind a crankbait is that water pushes on this bill and it's going to crank. It's going to go side to side, back and forth. As that's happening, these treble hooks are flailing back and forth as well. And when you watch a bass eat, a bass isn't always physically attacking. A lot of times it is just sucking that bait in. Yeah. So as this bait is cranking and that bass sucks, a lot of times what happens is this happens. So they tried to eat it, but there's so much like dangle from these treble hooks that they get hooked, you know, on the outside, on the face, underneath. You know, underneath. And it's not that they missed. Right. It's just the nature of, you know, the movement and all these hooks, you know, just get in the way. So it's very, very critical in crankbait fishing if you want to elevate your crankbait fishing and maximize bite to land ratio that you have the right rod. Absolutely. Now, there's also a lot to be said as we get into baits that are, you know, banging on the bottom and hitting structure, that the rod be able to transmit sensitivity to you so that you can feel what's happening, right?
Right.
Because obviously if the rod's too soft and it's just absorbing everything, you get like, man, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, you're winding like a wet sock. You know?
Totally,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So we're going to kind of break down, you know, all the pieces. You want the rod to be able to load and cast the bait well.
Yep.
You want it to be able to handle the bait as you're retrieving. A lot of times you hear, you know, people talk about, you know, some of the deeper divers like an 8XD or a 10XD or some of
Right.
these big crankbaits. And you hear them talk like, oh, I hate throwing that thing because it wears me out, right? But if you have the right rod that's built for that, it will absorb a lot of that and it make it easier to fish.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. To kind of simplify it, right? There are basically two styles of rods. Well, let's say three styles of blank materials. Okay.
Right.
You have a graphite that almost every brand will produce a graphite crankbait rod. Right. Then you have fiberglass, which is kind of a old throwback material that is revitalizing now, and technology's come really far.
Yeah.
Glass is going to be slow but strong. Graphite is going to be fast and light.
Yeah.
Right? And then you have like a third, which is a glass composite, which is usually a blend of glass and carbon material that kind of bridges those two. Right? Now, let's talk about the benefits of each. You have a Megabass Tomahawk, which is a glass rod.
Yeah.
I have a Megabass P5 Z-Crank Elseil, which is a graphite rod. Right? And so here is basically what you're looking at when you're choosing material. And I think choosing the material is important here.
Yeah.
Based on what it is that you guys need to do. So the advantage of going graphite is that they're super light. So you just can't beat the lightness to a graphite rod. So if you guys are looking for the ultimate in lightweight, graphite is going to beat glass every time. It's just the nature of the material. One weighs less than the other.
Right, they're heavier.
Yeah. The other advantage to graphite is that because it's faster, it tends to be more sensitive. So if you're trying to maximize every little feel that you can squeeze out of something, then graphite can definitely be a good option for you because it's going to transmit sensitivity faster because it's a faster material.
Right.
Now, the downside to graphite is graphite has a hard time being slowed down but maintaining strength. So, you know, graphite needs to either be fast and strong or kind of slow and weak. So as you get into some of these rods that have, you know, a bend deeper into the middle, it can slow it down a little bit, but it's also kind of weakening the strength of the rod. Right? Which is why a lot of like, you know, parabolic graphite rods aren't necessarily as strong as a glass rod.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you've got a glass rod. Tell me the pros and cons of this guy.
So I always go to a glass rod, like back to what you said. So when a fish strikes at that bait, it's sucking the bait. It's not completely eating it. So with a glass rod being slower, you know, when I turn my torso and I feel that pressure, the slowness of the rod allows them to stay hooked, and you know, whether they have one, you know, or all of them, but I can't tell you how many fish on a glass rod I've landed barely skin hooked because of the action of my rod. So if you had that rod, you know, with it being faster, you might have lost,
rip it out.
You may
of the
rip
face.
it out, exactly. Right. So,
and this is something that a lot of anglers don't think about until after they've purchased the rod, after they fish, and they're starting to lose fish. And like, well, shit, why am I losing so many fish? But this is a really important part of buying a rod. Is you want to enjoy casting it. Yeah. You want to enjoy fishing it, right? Because most of the day you're going to be casting and retrieving. So all those things are important. Yeah. But you really need to pay attention to the land ratio 100% of these rods. And glass is just flat out going to deliver a better land ratio.
Absolutely. It's not graphite. As sensitive as that. You know, like when you're winding that, the whole rod, you feel the vibration of the bait. Everything's, you know, happening. With this one, it's a little bit more faint. You know, you can feel the vibration of the bait, but not so much. So you always see guys like turn their body and their rod's always at an angle. You know, you're kind of pulling the bait like with a glass rod, you know, to stay in tune with it and feel it. But when they bite it, you know, I have a lot of confidence that I'm going to get that fish in rather than with graphite rod.
Right.
Yeah.
The other big advantage to glass is glass is incredibly strong in a rod. So you can slow this material down, but maintain a very high strength rod.
Absolutely.
So if you look at lure ratings on glass rods versus graphite rods, they're usually through the roof on a glass rod. Like
Yeah.
most glass rods will be like well over an ounce lure rating, ounce and
absolutely.
a half, 2 ounce. It's because it's so strong, it can handle the weight load. It can throw that back and forth, but it's also giving you a lot of power.
Yeah.
So if you're needing to pull fish out of cover, put a heavier line, which, you know, we like when we throw square bills and, you know, that style,
Yeah.
for me, most of the time it's on like 18 or 20 pound
18 or
line.
20, yeah.
It's, you know, around a bush or a tree.
Right.
Right.
Or ripping it out of grass, and that's where this glass rod shines so much, because you're super aggressively ripping, you know, out of that grass, and you're creating slack. And, you know, if you create all that slack, by the time you go to pick back up, if one grabs that square bill or bait as it's floating up, you know, and then he turns, like, this will absorb all that, you know, and you get those fish.
Cool. So the in-between here that we don't have
Yeah.
is that kind of hybrid,
Right.
that glass carbon composite. And that kind of does a great job of bridging the gap, right?
Yeah.
It gives you the a little bit lighter feel than a straight glass, a little more sensitivity than a straight glass, not
Right.
quite as soft and shock absorbing as
Yeah.
a straight glass, but it kind of bridges the two.
Right.
So as we talk through some of these rod models today, we will highlight which ones are graphite, which ones are full glass, which ones are composites, so that you guys can kind of understand what each rod does and why we're selecting.
All shine depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and so much of it is feel.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's a right and a wrong for me.
Right.
Right? And it's based on what feels right to me and what's working best for me. But the same may not be true for, you know, Jeff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He probably needs different gear than me.
Right.
So professional gear, you know, Jeff gear.
Got it.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay. So let's break it down.
All right.
You
let's
want
do
to?
it.
All right. So I think the best thing to do is let's just go through crankbaits from
Okay.
small to large.
Okay.
And let's just pick our favorite rods.
Yeah.
You
let's
ready?
have some fun.
Okay. Let's start running through this. So
Yeah.
we're going to start small and work our way up.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're looking to throw some of these smaller crankbaits, and they can be, you know, mid divers like these two up here, they can be smaller square bills like the Blitz or the LC 15. You know, these are, you know, baits that we have in our arsenal all the time.
Yeah.
The challenge to throwing a smaller bait, obviously, is that they're light. So a lot of these might be a 1/4 ounce, maybe 3/8. So you need a rod that has a lot of tip that
Yep.
can load and help you cast. They also have smaller hooks, so it's pretty nice to have a rod that's soft enough to absorb the shock
Yeah.
in the land ratio, right? So really we're looking for castability here
Yep.
and land ratio. Those are the two big things, right? What do you have in your hands?
So I've got the Megabass Orochi Swingfire. What's awesome about this rod is it's whippy. So those little baits will load this rod, and you can be accurate. You know, some of those baits are a 1/4 of an ounce. They're real small, and you can't get away with being accurate on some of these other rods. So
This is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And when he's talking about whippy, you can see like it doesn't take a lot of power here to really kind of bend this, right? So even at the tip, like even a light bait is going to load really, really well
Yeah.
on this thing. This is a glass composite rod. So it's kind of blending the two worlds. It's light,
yeah,
it's crisp, but it's got all the bend for throwing those smaller
absolutely.
square bills. Really, for me, it's like a smaller square bill rod.
Yeah.
I love this rod for the smaller square, like the Blitz,
Yeah,
the
Blitz.
1.5, the ones that we just showed.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's a great one.
The other thing that's great about this rod is that it can handle heavier line,
Yeah.
too. So, you know, just because you're going down in size of bait doesn't mean you have to go down in size of line. So, like, a lot of times this rod for me has 20 pound
Yeah.
on it. Are you throwing
Absolutely.
heavier line
Yeah.
on this rod, too?
100%.
Yeah.
16 to 20. And don't let it fool you. Like, we're throwing these little baits, but this rod has some power. You know, we've caught some really big fish on this rod, and, you know, you first, you know, once you realize it's a big one, it's like, okay, you know, could get sketchy, but it's really not. Like,
It's got plenty of backbone on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It is really perfect and ideal for the smaller crankbait. though.
yeah.
So you can overpower this rod very quickly by going to baits that dive really much deeper
Yeah.
than like 6 to 8 foot. I find that even when I go to like a 10 or 12 foot diver,
Yeah.
it just it really loads
too much.
Too much.
Yeah, all that is to help us cast the baits. That's why this rod shines so much for those little baits, because there's not really a lot of options that can load the rod, you know, with those little deals. So.
Yep. So one of the new rods that's kind of outshined maybe this rod is the P5 Z Crank Elseil, right? And like this is the new shiny star of like that light small crankbait lineup from Megabass.
Absolutely.
It weighs like half the weight of the Orochi, so it weighs nothing. This is an interesting rod because it is graphite, so you lose that softness that you get in the Swingfire, especially in the tip. When this rod is fully loaded, it does have some decent bend through the midsection, so it does do a decent job absorbing the crankbait. But I find that if you're using this rod on something, you know, specifically like a Z crank, you know, something that has that LBO transfer, it's awesome. Yeah. But if you're throwing something that doesn't really have a weight transfer system, like something like this, like a Blitz, it doesn't have enough whip for me to accurately cast it the way the Swingfire does. Right. So,
but
you
the
know,
sensitivity in this rod is unreal.
Is through the roof.
Yeah.
So you feel every little bounce of your bait,
which is nice.
Yeah, so you'll just have to decide if you don't need that real whippy tip to help cast an unweighted light bait. Yeah, this could be an amazing option for you. But if you really need that glassy tip, I would stay in the Swingfire over this guy.
Yeah, good point.
Another option that we wanted to show, basically a non-Megabass option, that's a great price point rod, is Shimano and their Expride. So again, this is going to be like a great bang for the buck in that kind of $250 price point. It's just a beautiful, simple, all-around rod that's going to give you that nice soft tip at the top for loading. It's a little bit faster than the Swingfire is for me. So the Swingfire and this have about the same power, but the Swingfire has a much softer tip up here, whereas this one is more of almost like a traditional graphite bend. It bends deeper in through the middle, so it has that beautiful glass, you know, performance to land the fish, but the actual like whippy tip to get a real light bait out, I still err this way. But it's another great option, especially if you guys, I know Expride, we sell tons of them, so a lot of guys love the Expride, so that would be another great option for the smaller crankbait for you guys. All right, the next segment in crankbait rods for us would be what we would consider like mid-range cranks. So a mid-range crank would be something like a Megabass DeepX 200 or 300, something like the OSP Blitz Max DR. It could even do something like the Combat Crank 400. These are baits that we throw all the time on our mid-range crank rod. It could also be just a little bit larger square bill, something like a Sonic Side or a Flat Force, something that's approaching that kind of half-ounce square bill size. So talk to me about the rods that you have.
Yeah, man. So back to my favorite. This is the 7-1 Tomahawk. So this rod is going to be my square bill, the Flat Force, Sonic Side, and then I transfer into a little bit on the medium side of things. I go into that Blitz EX DR, but still I'm in a glass rod. So if I'm cranking around grass, I prefer glass, or you know, even rock. Like if I'm paralleling banks that have a lot of chunk rock, I still want that glass. But that's the sweet spot for it. Bigger square bills and that finessier mid-range crank. That's where that rod shines for me.
Yeah, and it's really a true glass rod. Yeah. 7-1, so it's short enough to where you could make tight roll casts if you're fishing around a bunch of stuff. Yeah. It's just a good
and we find ourselves tight in areas, you know, out here. So that one really shines for us a lot.
Yep. Another one that's very similar to that as far as length and power goes. Yeah. That is another one of our favorites. Yeah. It's one that hardly ever comes out of my hands. Sorry, I had to pull it out of my boat. Is the Valkyrie 7-1 medium heavy. So this guy is a glass carbon composite. So it's a little bit, it's just a different action, but it's the perfect action for me for the mid-range. So like my Blitz Max DR, the Blitz EX DR, like those live on
Right.
this rod for
Yeah,
both of us,
for
pretty
both
much.
of us.
The other thing that's cool about the Valkyrie, we've talked about this before, the Valkyrie has an adjustable grip. I don't use this a whole lot, but when you need it, it's nice to have it. So you can literally just, you know, extend it. You've got the two-handed grip here. You can loosen it and you can shorten it up so that if you need to get around brush and make a little roll cast or a little tighter cast, you can shorten the grip or lengthen it depending on your need, which can be nice. I mean, this gives you a little extra versatility. You can also use it to balance out your reel. You see a lot of guys, you know, doing this kind of stupid stuff.
Right.
So if you geek out on that stuff, you can use it to kind of balance your reel.
Yeah.
But it's another great all-around one for this mid
that rod's
stuff.
phenomenal.
Yeah. All right, what else do you have in your hand?
All right, so this is one we've been playing with. This is the Valleyhill Black Scale. Again, full glass. This is an amazing rod, again, for that Blitz Max, that little bit deeper diving that's gonna have a little bit tighter wobble, and I like, it's 7'4", so that's, you know, I
You get a
love that
little
longer
extra
rod.
length, right?
Yeah.
So would you say, when you're talking about these mid-depth cranks, would you say that the 7'4" over the 7 foot is better for like the diving cranks, like a Blitz Max DR or a Deep X 300, or does it not really?
I think it
does
depends
depend
on
the rod?
what you're trying to get the bait down. You know, there's times where I need a longer rod for a square bill if I'm offshore, you know, but shallow, or like I like that longer rod with a deeper diving crankbait. Obviously, you get a little bit deeper. You know, you can get a mid-range crank into depths that, you know, you usually wouldn't get with a 7'1". So you get a little bit longer, and you know, it's again super nichey. This is a nichey rod when you're cranking, but it's an awesome one.
It's a little heavier to the hand.
It is.
It weighs like this. Weighs like a true glass rod, like you'd expect. Like you pick it up, and it's heavy.
Yeah.
But it's beautifully styled.
Well, what's awesome about it too is when you put a reel on here, it's kind of front heavy. So when you get reared back on a long cast, it just, and you release, that length and that heaviness just kind of floats forward, and that bait's gone, man. It's insane.
Yeah.
But
so the functionality is important.
Yeah, and it's super comfortable to fish. I love that long cork handle. It's an awesome one from Valleyhill.
Cool. Just to highlight some other really good rods for this mid-range crank. Daiwa has a beautiful rod in their lineup called Rebellion. We talk about Rebellion a lot. This is the $199 price point rod from Daiwa, so it's an amazing bang for the buck. They make a 7.3 medium heavy. That's, again, a perfect all-around use glass rod. It fits right into this category, this segment. It's one of the lighter glass rods on the market, which is crazy for 199 bucks.
Yeah.
It's a little shorter grip, right? So the reel is going to sit farther down on this rod than it would, say, like the black scale, right? So it's a couple inches further back. So it's just gonna have a little different feel to it. It's gonna be more rod ahead, a little shorter grip, which a lot of guys like, especially if you're in a tighter situation, you need to kind of do some roll or, you know, kind of skip type deals. But this could be a great bang for the buck option from Daiwa. Another kind of relatively new player, check that one out.
Yeah.
I don't think you've played with that one yet.
No,
'Cause they just showed up. So this is the Jackall Revoltage. This is the 7-foot medium heavy glass. So again, it's going to be a glass carbon composite. This is going to be just a great all-around use rod from Jackall. Beautifully styled, very aggressive JDM styling.
Awesome,
but this could be a great one. Like, to me, this would be a really good, like, tight quarter square bill rod.
100%. I was just thinking that, like that Sonic side, we have a lot of scenarios in the fall where we've got to get super tight, you know, and roll cast. This one would be awesome, you know, and you don't want like a super like whippy glass rod in those scenarios because there's 3 reel cranks between you and the fish, you know, by the time you swing them in the boat. So you want that faster action.
Yep. All right, another rod that really fits nicely into that mid-range crank category is from St. Croix. This is a St. Croix Legend Glass. So this rod actually won Best of Show at ICAST. It's a beautifully built rod. St. Croix is famous for their strength and the way that they build their rods. This is a 7.4 medium heavy glass rod. It's very moderate. It's got a larger grip. So a lot of anglers, especially for, you know, tighter casts, more accurate casts, like a little bit more rod to grip onto. It's going to bend right through deeper into the blank. So this would be a great kind of all around, for me, it's like that mid-depth If you really want like a true glass rod, it's very light. So it just could be another good option for you. It's affordable. So built in the USA, which is always nice.
Yeah.
So definitely one to check out from St. Croix. And then you've got one of our favorite niche rods. So talk to me about this one.
Back again to that close quarters, but a little bit bigger. So there's a time of year where we like to get into that 2.5, that 2.0 S-crank, that bigger, more aggressive square bill. But you need something that has backbone again. But for that bigger bait, we love the Madbull, man. You guys already know we love the Madbull for a bunch of other things.
Let me see this thing. I do love this rod.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude. But yeah, that bigger square bill, 20-pound line, aggressive, you know, around big, heavy structure. It's, you know, I have confidence getting those bigger caliber fish out of that with this rod.
Now, this rod was actually, this is a graphite rod.
Yeah.
And it was touted in the beginning to be a deep crankbait rod.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they built it for.
Right.
And I think it's way off.
It's off.
Yeah. But it's beautifully off,
yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, and what we're talking about is really for a deep crank, the way this rod is built, it wears you out.
Yeah.
But for this size, like these are kind of niche square bills, and a lot of anglers throw this larger size square bill that, you know, the bait may weigh 5/8, 3/4, 1 ounce.
Yeah.
That's a pretty heavy bait to throw on a traditional square bill rod.
Right.
So this rod handles that size reaction bait like freaking amazing.
Right.
It still has that kind of bend through the middle that you want, but it's got tons of power to it. So again, it's not one that I would consider a crankbait rod.
Right.
It's really like niched for this
this
one application for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same?
Yeah. Well, I found it when we were winding that Evoke, like that 4.0. It's like, what rod do I have that, like, I feel comfortable this tight,
right,
you know? And throw it on there,
this
and then
is the
perfect
one.
Match.
Yeah.
So
if you guys like throwing that little larger square bill, we do it quite a bit
Yeah.
out here. I can't recommend this rod enough. It's a
the
great
one.
one, and really, it's a very universal, like 3/4 reaction bait rod.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't think that, oh, it only throws this bait. As far as crankbaits go, it likes to throw this larger, shallow, diving, close quarter crankbait,
Right.
but it throws, you know, larger walking baits really well, like a kick knocker, a shower blows.
Yeah.
It can throw smaller swim baits. It
Spinner
can
bait.
throw like smaller, hard glide baits, like the Slide Swimmer 115, you know, bigger spinner bait. So there's a lot of use for this rod. This is
Yeah.
a rod that we use a lot, but in crankbait terms, it throws this size crankbait beautifully well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to round us out here, let's talk about deep diving crankbaits.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about deep diving crankbaits, we're talking about things anywhere from like this Deep 6, 8XD, 10XD, Big M 7.5. These baits can be anywhere from 3/4 of an ounce to, like this guy's 2 1/8 ounce. They're gonna dive really anywhere from like that 18 to like 25 and beyond depth. So this is a hard bait to throw if you have the wrong rod.
Yeah.
But if you have the right rod,
It's beautiful.
it's beautiful. So
Yeah.
talk to us about the right rod, because this is one of those rods that it's kind of the no-brainer for
Yeah.
us. I think we both totally agree. So
Yeah.
talk to us about what's in your hand.
So this is, again, Megabass Orochi. This is the launcher. So when we're throwing, the starting point for this rod for me is the Deep 6 all the way up to that Big M 7.5. And, you know, ever since that came out, it's been the sweet spot, the no-brainer since the beginning.
Yeah. So this is a glass composite rod.
Yeah.
So you get the benefit of glass and you get the benefit of the graphite. So you get kind of the best of both worlds. Sometimes a rod manufacturer just makes a home run.
Yeah.
And they just nail it.
Yeah.
And for me, this is one of those rods.
Right.
Like there's more expensive options than this, but to me, this is always like 100% of the time when somebody wants, like, what's the best deep crank rod?
Yeah.
This is 100%.
Well, we're all
for me.
about actions.
Yeah.
You know, like wherever it is, we want the best action, and they nailed it in that rod.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, like we throw these giant baits on it, and it's sensitive. That's what's like amazing is I'm
Right.
winding that 7.5, and I'm feeling everything I'm doing through this rod, rather than just barely feeling it. It's like,
Right. It
seductive.
doesn't feel like a wet sock,
Yeah,
like what you mentioned.
exactly.
It doesn't crank your arm off. So
Yeah.
this is an 8-foot rod, and the advantage of going to a 7-Eleven but
Yeah.
I'm running date.
Yeah.
The advantage of going to a longer rod with the deep crank is because these big bills, you know, like on the Big Strike King or the Deep 6 or 7.5, they're diving far, right? And so they're going to bend that rod pretty deep into the rod as it's cranking down. The advantage of going to a longer rod is that it will absorb most of that crank by the mid part of the rod so that it's not wearing your arm out.
Right.
You know, a lot of guys try to use a shorter rod to throw a deeper crank, and it just bends so far down into the rod that it feels like it's kind of pushing and pulling against your arm, and it wears you out, and they become exhausting to throw.
You don't want to throw it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can't stress highly enough, you guys are going to get into the deep crank game. Very rarely are you, you know, close quarter pitching it. You're almost always just making a bomb cast. For me, so many times with a deep crank, especially like the 8XD, 10XD, the Big M, I get most of my bites like when it first reaches depth.
Yeah.
So I make this huge freaking cast and I wind it down and it goes straight down, and then as soon as it hits something, boom, they've eaten it, and it's way the hell out there.
Yep.
So having that extra length to be able to sweep and pick up line and actually get a good hook set
100%.
is really important for me. Yeah.
They stay pinned on that route too.
Yeah. So, you know, if you guys are looking for a good deep crank rod, this is the no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really don't feel that this rod can be beat.
Right.
But we're going to show some other options just in case, you know, you guys want to look at something different, you know. So this is another rod that we sell quite a bit here in store, and this is the Loomis IMX Pro. This is their 8-foot cranking stick. This particular model, it's a 969C CBR.
Oh.
Yeah. So, you know, if you're looking for a graphite rod to throw crankbaits on, you know, Loomis does make good graphite cranking sticks. But the reason why they haven't been in the conversation until now is they just don't land fish as well as the other ones that we've spoken about. They're light, they're graphite, they have an amazing warranty, but to me, they're just missing that little bit of glass. When they soften the graphite, it just weakens it a little bit, and the land ratio just isn't what it should be.
Yeah.
This is one of those that, because it's so long, it kind of bridges that gap. It's 8 foot. It's got all the lure rating. It's, you know, 1/2 ounce to 3.5 ounces. So it can handle all these bigger cranks. And because, again, because of the length, it will absorb everything at the top, and it's got lots of backbone down here on the bottom. So this could be another really good option for you guys. All right, let's talk about this dude, another Daiwa Rebellion. I'm gonna hand this off to you.
Okay.
7.4 glass. So again, really light. Good price point. The only reason I put this in here is because you and I have both been seeing a huge influx of people fishing from a kayak, fishing from the shore, you know, fishing from boats that maybe don't have a rod locker that can accommodate an 8-foot rod.
Right.
So, you know, there are, you know, situations where an 8-foot rod just isn't practical, but they still need a rod that can handle it.
Yeah.
This would be an option for you.
Yeah, 7'4", you know, you're going to be able to cast it whether you're sitting down or you're, I guess, tighter area, not trying to fall in the water. You're in a yak or something, but this would be a really good one to accomplish deep cranking and, you know, not have to deal with an 8-foot rod.
The action is right.
The action is right, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, so the length isn't ideal because it is going, you're going to transmit, you're going to feel it more in your hand with the shorter rod. But the action is right. The power is right. So, I mean, it's still rated to 2 ounces, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 3/8 to 2 ounces. So it can manage all the baits in this category. So if you need a shorter option, this is a good one. $199 too, which is good.
Hard to beat.
So could potentially be a good solid option for you.
Yeah,
all
for sure.
And we've got one more little niche rod. Do you like this rod?
Yeah, I do.
I love this rod. Okay, big crankbait that isn't necessarily deep diving. And this is like a new segment, well, not necessarily a new segment, but it's a growing segment.
For sure.
Right? So this would be things like this guy, like a Big M 4.0 or a Big M 2.0. You know, Lucky Craft makes that big SKT square bill,
the
right?
Evoke 4.0.
The Evoke 4.0 from Depths. So we're talking about like 1.5 to 2 ounce baits, right? They're too heavy to throw on a traditional square bill rod, but they're not baits that we're always just going to be like, you know, heaving out into nowhere.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like for me, like this 2.0 or that Evoke, right?
Yeah.
I'm like close quarter fishing like I would a square bill.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So this is a rod that can help me accommodate and accomplish that. This is in the P5 lineup from Megabass as well. This is the Tequila Baccarac. So this is a 7-foot rod, but it has an amazing lure rating. So it's 3/4 to 4 ounces. It's very light, and what's great about this rod is it bends through the middle and a little extra bend at the tip, so it can accommodate these treble hook baits very easily. It loads them well. It's just a great close range, accurate rod for some of these heavier, like obscure cranks that really don't have a home in anything else. So if you guys are getting into this like larger gizzard shad, big threadfin profile crankbait, you know, definitely consider this guy. It's been an amazing option.
Being accurate's really big in this technique too. That's why that 7-foot plays, you know.
Totally. Yeah, and it fishes. Once they're hooked, it feels like you've got like this big, powerful swimbait rod almost.
Yeah.
But it casts like a 7-foot rod.
Yeah.
It casts very accurate.
Every single time I put this rod in my clients' hands, they're like, "It's how long?" You know, they think they're playing around with a 7.5-foot, 8-footer. I'm like, "It's 7 foot."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blown away.
So definitely consider that one. It's a great one for this kind of niche realm. That's Tequila Baccarac from Megabass. All right, guys, that is a wrap. Hopefully that was useful information. Hopefully it sheds some light on some of the rods that we recommend that we think are really perfect for a lot of these techniques. Of course, if you guys have any questions, please drop them below in the comments and one of us will get to them. Jeff will leave links to all these products in the description as well, so if you want to check any of them closer, you can. On behalf of myself and Hippie, thanks, dude.
You got it, man.
Thanks for joining,
Anytime,
dude.
brother.
Appreciate it. Till next time, guys. Peace out. I'm going to take the best crankbait rod and get out of here.
This is the best
No,
one.
this is the best one.